welcome back to part two of our chat with Brian Mollan. Brian, hello, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Paul. Good to see you.
Good. Okay. I wanted to move on to the general situation of EVs and renewable because I know you're into both. Australia. I mean, when we spoke in 2019, Australia had quite a poor reputation in the renewables sector. It's improved somewhat since, but nevertheless, there's still sizable gas and oil production around the continent. But it's the country's use and export of coal. Coal's mined in every state in Australia, and it's the second biggest exporter in the world of coal, 30% of which goes to Japan, presumably because they don't have a nuclear power infrastructure since Fukushima. Yeah, go on.
No, I'm greatly ashamed of those statistics. On the bright side, South Australia has really been making, the state of South Australia has been making great strides and is for frequent periods is 100% powered by renewables, and so much so in fact that it exports to the other states when it's got excess renewables. It also put in the big Tesla, or at that time the big Tesla battery. Over east is one grid. It's called the National Electricity Grid over there, but Western Australia isn't connected to that. And most recently, the National Electricity Grid managed 71%.
You very much are. The country's overall energy mix is about, last year, on average, 36%, which compares relatively favourably to the UK's 42, doesn't it?
Well, yes, but Paul, we've got enough sun falling on the whole of Australia to power the world for 10 years or something.
Yes, yes, quite.
So I'm credit to UK for what it's been doing, and I know a lot of it is wind, which is great. And the London array is massive. That's wonderful. We have a problem here. One of our politicians in Canberra got up in Parliament and said wind turbines are a blight on the landscape. They're ugly and they're horrible. Whilst another,
you may not have read this. You may not have read this yet, but just today, the London Guardian are reporting that Toyota being the biggest supplier of cars in Australia. Toyota is saying Australia's not ready for EVs, and everybody's going, "Oh my God, what are you talking about?" I know, it's crazy. But the four major banks in Australia have promised to divest all of their coal investments by 2013, which means that they're going to be in alignment with the Paris Climate Agreement. So if the politicians aren't moving, then the financial institutions are. And I suspect the consumers will do as well, because there's going to be more and more people who take the view that you do.
Yeah.
Are there signs that the voters want to move faster? Do you have a Green Party in Australia? I bet you do, don't you?
Yes, there is a Green Party, Paul. They started quite strongly and got quite a lot of votes. They're still not. They hold the power in the Senate, which is interesting. But in the lower house, they haven't got a great representation. I believe they've been overtaken by the independents. The independents polled very strongly in the last election, and they have some very good actual thinking politicians who are not in the pockets of fossil fuel and are independent, truly independent of major corporate sponsors, which is great. And they're doing some good things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
While I was doing some research for this thing, I came across something that I was totally unfamiliar with. Bagasse. Is that how you say it? Bagasse?
When you mentioned it...
It's waste sugar plant, isn't it?
It's biogas, isn't it?
It's biomass, yeah. So your government, the Australian government, classes bagasse as a renewable energy source, and there's a number of power plants in Queensland, which is the other side of the country to you, I think. And in fairness, most people who know about these things say that burning bagasse to generate electricity generates less CO2 than the plant absorbs during its growth. So it is CO2 negative, if you like.
Yes,
but it's still burning stuff, isn't it?
It's still burning methane and producing CO2.
Yeah.
It's like the gas industry would love to tell us that gas is a transition fuel to the renewable future, but it's just hype.
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. I mean, certainly since we were talking a couple of years ago, I'm cautiously optimistic for Australia. The switch to renewables seems to be driven by the consumer and to an extent by the financial industry. Government is being left behind. As with the UK, perhaps a few tax tweaks and investments would greatly help.
Paul, it's interesting. My solar system has, since 2008, has exported 98,290 units or kilowatt of electricity, kilowatt hours, and imported 43,258, meaning that in that time, my net export to the grid has been 55,000. Now, when I first started, the feed-in tariff was 47 cents a unit, which was quite good. And I kept a record, and after 10 years, they stopped the 47 cents a unit feed-in tariff and dropped it to 7 cents. So I added up all my subsidies, feed-in tariff that I'd been paid for to that date, and in that 10 years, that system had paid for itself, had been paid for by the consumer, if you like, or the government.
That's interesting, isn't it, that the payback period was that short?
It's much shorter today because panels are so much cheaper, yes.
EVs in general, in and around Australia and Western Australia. The Tesla 3 and Y are currently the best-selling EVs in Australia, though, as we say, Toyota are the best-selling car manufacturer. The BYD Atto 3, which I haven't seen, and the MG ZS EV, third and fourth. Currently, the Leaf is down in 20th place in the league table in Australian sales, and Aria's not on sale there yet in 2023. What other cars do you see there? What other electric cars?
Okay, well, bearing in mind Western Australia abbreviation is WA, which also stands for wait a while, we we probably don't see as many as they do in the eastern states. But a year ago, 2 years ago, seeing another Tesla, or what the nasty people call the California cockroach, on the roads was quite remarkable. Now they are very common, and it's wonderful to see Tesla Model 3s, Ys, Xs, very common. Other cars are beginning to make an indent. The MG4, the BYDs, and I see the Dolphin has arrived recently in the eastern states.
We don't have that yet.
I haven't seen it in WA yet. Polestar, there's one or two of them around.
Yes.
Jaguar I-Pace, yes. One or two of them. But way outnumbered by Teslas.
Do you get Minis? Because they're very popular here. We like them because they're British built.
Yes. There's a few of them. But of course, you're again building them in UK.
Actually, I should perhaps clarify. They're built at Cowley in Oxford, not far from me. Government investment means that the new version of the electric Mini won't be built in the UK until 2026. Until then, they're Chinese, and so yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not that into Chinese built cars. It's geopolitics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But yes, we are making inroads into the ICE vehicle market, which is good. But just before we go. if you can edit back into it being the first Leaf in Western Australia, the economics were interesting.
Oh, go on then. Yes.
The car cost, and I've converted it to UK pounds, 24,430. The add-ons of government charges, licensing, registration, stamp duty, GST, and everything else came to 6,200.
So in 2012, in the UK, the Leaf was £27,000. So, I mean, allowing for currency conversion, the prices are quite close.
I'm surprised. Yeah, and it's interesting. The actual car was 24,430 quid, and a year later they were selling them for 20,640.
Yes,
because they didn't market them. There were some.
No, you're right.
Some
they didn't.
Beautiful ads, but they didn't put them on the television. Nissan Australia really were only doing it because they were told to by corporate in Japan, and their heart wasn't in it. I was appalled when I bought it. The salesman I got it from knew far less about electric vehicles than I did, who'd been using the electric motorbike for some years by that stage. He really wasn't clued up at all. My total mileage now, powered by this terrible sun that overheats the batteries of the car. The Leaf is currently sitting at 39,420 miles, which is very low for its age.
It's half mine.
Yeah. The motorbike is sitting at 57,000 miles, and the e-scooter at 384, making a total of 96,970 miles, all powered by the sun. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Absolutely lovely. Oh, one last thing. What's the state of health on the Leaf now?
87, state of health 87. It came at 92 when I took delivery. 12 bars, yes.
So it's 12 bars. It's on 12 bars. 12 bars. Yes. Brian Mollan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for telling us all about your Leaf and about the challenges that Leaf ownership have in Australia. I hope to drink with you again sometime in the future in London. Brian, thank you very much for your time. Have a very good day.
Cheers.
Bye.